Hello, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to this Logic Pro 10 video tutorial on modulating a synth bass line with pitch sidechain effects, compression sidechain effects, as well as the bit crusher. Let me just show you what I've got so far. I've got sort of this rhythm idea from Alchemy, this arpeggiating idea from Alchemy, just a drone bass on E flat, and then just a basic drum pattern that I built with just some drum samples. Right now, you're not going to hear the bass at all because there's no software instrument on it whatsoever. All right, so let me mute out the synths for now. The bass idea that we want to put in here is literally just a long drone bass on the key of the song, which is E flat minor. So this is just a long drone bass on E flat rather. So nothing really that special. I'm going to use the ES2 for this because one of the things that we're going to do with this bass line is we're going to modulate the pitch of the oscillators in the synthesizer with a sidechain source, which to my knowledge only the ES2 and the EXS24 can do in Logic. So I'm going to use the ES2 for this. I'm going to use a patch under Synth Leads called Trance Lead. It's right here. By itself, it just sounds like this. Nothing special. I'm going to turn off all of the modulation sources. You just hold Option and click on the target. It'll get rid of those. Let's hear what our raw sound sounds like. Yeah, it's all sub. So let me, looks like we're using filter 2 over here quite a bit. The blend is all the way to the right, so we're pretty much just hearing everything going through filter 2. So I'm going to pull the cutoff up a bit so we can hear those oscillators a little bit better. I'm going to pull the FM depth up a little bit, just to get a little grit on it. Okay, and I'm also going to take oscillator number 1, and I'm going to pull it down an octave just to give it more of a subby sound. Cool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this kick drum. I'm going to go ahead and mute the snares to modulate the pitch of the oscillators. This is really cool to create sort of scooping pitch effects on every kick hit. So what I'm going to do is on the very first target here, on our very first modulation router here, I'm going to choose pitch 1, 2, and 3, which means we're going to modulate the pitch of all 3 oscillators. The via, I'm going to hold Option and click on because I'm going to set it back to default. I'm going to set the modulation amount back to default by clicking on this little 0 here while holding Option. And then my source, way down at the bottom, is going to be sidechain. So our sidechain source, which is going to be our kick drum, is going to affect pitch. So let's go up to our sidechain source up here. By the way, the Evoc 20, the vocoder, can also sidechain modulate things, but that's a little bit different. That's used for vocoders and not really for this sort of thing. One thing I just want to fill you in on, and I said this in my last sidechain video, is that sidechain sources typically need to be audio sources. So if this was just a MIDI file or a MIDI track here, that's not going to work unless you tried to bus it through an aux track and then sidechain the aux track, which I don't like to do. So I usually just, if you're working with MIDI on your kick here, just convert it to audio and then it'll show up here as a sidechain source. All right, so I'm going to play this, and as it's playing, I'm going to move the modulation depth up and down. You'll see that the note will scoop up when it's in the lower area, and it'll scoop down when it's in the upper area. So let's do a scoop up. One other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to modulate this FM depth knob over here. So go to Target, Low Pass Filter FM, and we're going to modulate that with the sidechain source as well. But we're going to do a positive value for this one. Just gives us a little bit of a little bite on the front end of every note. All right, so let's hear what this sounds like with everything in the mix. Okay, that's kind of cool, but let's do something else with it. Let's say that I want the modulation, the pitch modulation to go up, to scoop up for 2 bars and then scoop down for 2 bars and sort of alternate back and forth. Well, what we can do to make that happen is we can cut our bass line into 2-bar clips and then create 2 different bass tracks, one that scoops up and one that scoops down. So I'm going to use my scissors tool for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my snap mode to bar mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on the second bar, 2 bars in on my bass idea, I'm going to cut, but I'm also going to hold Option while I cut. And that's going to do like a repeating cut. Now make sure you hold hit split for this, because it's going to split the MIDI note. And so it cuts the whole thing into these 2-bar phrases. Then what I can do is duplicate my bass track. I'm going to call this one bass up. I'm going to call the top one bass down. So this one's going to scoop down, or excuse me, let's do it the opposite way. Bass scoop up, bass scoop down. There we go. So I'm going to take every other clip, pull it down here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this track's ES2, reassign the sidechain source, because it disables it, it turns it, unassigns it. And we're going to go with the sidechain pitch modulation that scoops down instead. So let's just listen to the 2 basses plus the kick drum. All right, that's pretty cool. Let's do something else to this. Let's bus both of these bass tracks over to an aux track. So I'm going to make their outputs bus 1. And what we're going to do is, just to accentuate this pitch effect even more, we're going to sidechain modulate volume with a compressor. So we're going to have compression sidechaining on this aux track that both of these basses are going into, plus the pitch effect that we're hearing. So what I'm going to do is throw a compressor on the bass channel here, bass aux track. We're going to choose the kick drum as the compression sidechain source. And this is explained in my other compression sidechaining video if you want want a little bit more detail. Let's just listen to that. So we're hearing the pitching effect, but we're also hearing the volume duck out of the way when the kick drum hits. Just makes a little bit more out of the effect. Another thing I'm going to do is, before the compressor, I'm going to throw the Bit Crusher plugin. It's under Distortion, Bit Crusher. And this is just going to really rasp up that bass line a bit. I'm going to lower the resolution, pull the drive up, and play with the downsampling in the mix until I get the sound I like. Cool, so we got this really gritty sound bass line. Let's, I'm going to throw the limiter on there just to keep it from clipping. And let's see what this sounds like with everything in the mix now. Cool. If I wanted to do maybe one more thing to it, one other thing I can think of, if I wanted to make the bass sound like it's moving a little bit, after the compressor, I could try throwing the tremolo on there. And the one I like to use for this is the slow, no, it's the soft tremolo. Let's try that setting. So play around with this in your own compositions. One thing I've always said to my students is a whole note can be a whole note, but you can do a lot with a whole note in terms of modulation. You know, you literally, this entire song, chord wise and bass wise, is nothing but whole note chords and whole note bass lines, just held notes. So it's not a matter of the notes themselves being super interesting. It's the synthesis modulation that we apply to it that makes it interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.